Good day. Today, you will learn about the history of global politics, creating an international. Can you say something about this picture? A picture that is very symbolic in regards in creating international order. Let's start with understanding international relations as a term refers to the scholars that study bureaucracy, interactions between states, either political, military, and other diplomatic engagement between two or more countries. It allows nations to cooperate with one another, pool resources, and share information as a way to face global issues that go beyond any particular country or region. And internationalization, a phenomenon that exists exploring the deepening of interaction between states. The study of relations of states with each other and with international organizations and certain subnational entities and presents a global-oriented perspective on issues that transcends national boundaries. In connection of global politics, may I present to you the attributes of today's global systems composed of four. 1. Countries or states are independent and govern themselves. 2. These countries interact with each other through diplomacy. 3. International organizations facilitate these interactions like UN. And last, international organizations also take on lives of their own. So there are some countries gained their independence tracing their history, like Philippines after more than 333 years of being under Spain, the control of USA, and the same with Japan. Now, Philippines has a voice in international affairs that broaden its identity through series of diplomatic process. Its territory as could be one of the example of it. And with regards to its interaction in global politics, the intervention of international organizations helped the country to promote its political identity and been cater to some global. To fully understand the attributes of today's global system, we must first know what is nation-state, as it is a relatively modern phenomenon in human history and people did not always organize themselves as countries, and it is composed of two non-interchangeable terms. Not all states are nations and not all nations are states. Example, Scotland, Bangsamoro in the Philippines, North and South Korea, and Chinese nations. There is a big difference between states and a nation. As written in the examples, Scotland has a flag and national culture yet belong to a state of United Kingdom. Bangsamoro, after approved by the Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, became a separate nation existing within a country yet recognized the authority of the said country. Meanwhile, if there are states with multiple nations, there are also single nations with multiple states like North and South Korea, tied with one nation but still these two are states. The same with the People's Republic of China and Taiwan. So what is the difference of nation and a state? According to layman's term, state refers to a country and its government, and it consists of four elements. 1. Population, exercise authority over citizens. 2. Government, crafts various rules that people follow. 3. Territory, an area which governments govern. And last, the sovereignty, refers to external and internal authority. Without a population, there can be no state. Population can be more or less, but it has to be there. They enjoy rights and freedom as citizens as well as perform several duties towards the states. Definite territory is its essential component. A state cannot exist in the air or at sea. It is essentially a territorial state. The state exercises its sovereign power through its government. Sovereignty is the basis on which the state regulates all aspects of the life of the people living in its territory. While according to Benedict Anderson, nation is an imagined community. It is limited because it does not go beyond a given official boundary. Being limited means that nation has its boundaries. Based on the examples of nation, Anyone can be a part of different religion that exists in the world, and that is one of the fundamental freedom of individual, but no one can be simple become as a Filipino. It takes years to become a citizen of one country. Like an American cannot simply go to the Philippine embassy and convert into a Philippine citizen, and the same process have made. Furthermore, calling it imagine does not mean that the nation is made up. Rather, the nation allows one to feel a connection with a community or people even if she or he will never meet all of them in his or her lifetime. Example, Olympics and territory. So how it became as imagine? For example, when you cheer for a Filipino athlete in the Olympics or any sports like Manny Pacquiao in boxing, it is not because you personally know that athlete, rather, you imagine your connection as both members of the same Filipino community. Another is the Philippine archipelago. You rest in the comfort that the majority of the people living in it are also Filipinos. Finally, most nations strive to become states. Nation builders can only feel a sense of fulfillment when that national ideas assume an organizational form whose authority and power are recognized and accepted by the. Moreover, if there are communities that are not states, they often seek some form of autonomy within their mother states. For example, Quebec, though belongs to Canada, yet has different law about language as they are French-speaking and required French language competencies for their citizens. Scotland Independence, on the other hand, has a strong dependence movement led by the Scottish Nationalist Party. So therefore, nation and states are closely related because it is nationalism that facilitates states formation. In the modern and contemporary era, it has been the nationalist movements that have allowed for the creation of nation-states. States become independent and sovereign because of national settlements that clamours for this independence. Nation and state has its similarity, and that is the sovereignty. So, the interstate system has the origin of the present-day concept of sovereignty can be traced back to the Treaty of Westphalia, which was the set of agreements signed in 1648 to end up the 30 Years' War between the major continental powers of Europe. However, spreading of French Revolution promoting liberty, equality, and fraternity expand to the rest of the Europe. Napoleonic Code forbids the birth privileges, encouraged freedom or religion, and promoted meritocracy in government service. So, sovereignty is thus one of the fundamental principles of modern state policies. Understanding how this became the case of entails going back as far as 400 years ago. The Westphalian system was destroyed by Napoleon Bonaparte and spread these ideas through Napoleonic Code. To continue, the Anglo and Prussian armies finally defeated Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, ending latter's mission to spread liberal code across Europe. So the royal powers restored the Westphalian system through forming the Concert of Europe as alliance of great powers. It sought to restore the world monarchical, hereditary, and religious privileges of the time before the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. It was an alliance to restore the sovereignty of states. The implementation of Napoleonic Code shocked the monarchies and the hereditary elites of Europe, and they mustered their armies to push back against the French emperor. Then, to prevent this situation, the royal powers created Concert of Europe. Until such time, under Metternich system, named from the late Clemens von Metternich, an Austrian diplomat, the concert powers and authority lasted from 1815 to 1914 at the dawn of World War I. Until now, states are considered sovereign and the great powers still hold significant influence over world politics. Example, the 5 permanent members of UN Security Council. So the state restored their sovereignty, and based on the example, this powerful grouping in the UN, the Security Council, has a core of 5 permanent members, all having veto powers over the Council's decision-making process. In addition to the concept of sovereignty, Internationalism was developed as a system of heightened interaction between various sovereign states, particularly the desire for greater cooperation and unity among states and people. And it has two broad categories: the liberal internationalism and the socialist liberalism. It was an awareness of internationalism shines a light upon nationalism and help us to better understand the continued appeal of nationalism within the global political realm. Moreover, the only means by which one can resolve complex and multifaceted issues is to tackle the cause of the problem from international perspectives. Immanuel Kant expressed his understanding with regards to liberal internationalism, likened states in a global system to people living in a given territory. According to him, states, like citizens of countries, must give up some freedoms and establish a continuously growing state consisting of various nations which will ultimately include the nations of the world. In short, Kant imagined a form of global government. In addition, according to him, if people living together require a government to prevent lawlessness, shouldn't that same principle apply to states? Without a form of government, he argued, the international system would be chaotic. He gave emphasis on the vital role of the government in order to attain peace and political order. Aside from Kant, Jeremy Bentham advocated the creation of international law that would govern the interstate relation. He believed that objective global legislators should aim to propose a legislation that would create the greatest happiness of all nations taken together. He focused on analyzing to have a one system or law that people may follow. To many, these proposals for global government and international law seem to represent challenges to states. Would not a world government, in effect, become supreme? And would not its law overwhelm the sovereignty of individual states? On the other hand, Giuseppe Mazzini argued that if the various Italian mini-states could unify, one could scale up the system to create. Mazzini was a nationalist internationalist who believes that free, unified nation-states should be the basis of global cooperation. Mazzini clearly believed that the spread of democracy and national self-determination would be a powerful force for peace in the long run, although the transition might often be violent. He believed in republican government and proposed a system of free nations that cooperated with each other to create an international system. From Europe, let's fly to United States, where Woodrow Wilson also believes in liberal internationalism. He was the US president from 1913 to 1921. Wilson saw nationalism as a prerequisite for internationalism, with a principle of self-determination, a belief that the world's nation had the right to a free and sovereign government. He hoped that these free nations would become democracies, because only by begin such would they be able to build a free system of international relations based on the international law and cooperation. In addition, he became the most notable advocate for the creation of the League of Nations. At the end of World War I in 1918, he pushed to transform the League into a venue for conciliation and arbitration to prevent another wars. For his efforts, Wilson was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919. To become democratic, a country should promote its nationalism. And internationalism, Woodrow believed that pertaining this type of ideas, a country may maintain its freedom, independence, and democracy. Through formation of League of Nations, ironically, the United States was not able to join the organization due to strong opposition from the Senate, unable to hinder another war from breaking out, and it was practically helpless to prevent the onset and intensification of World War II. On the one side of the war were the Axis powers, led by Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito. who were ultra-nationalists and had an instinctive disdain for internationalism and preferred to violently impose their dominance over other nations. It was in the midst of this war between Axis powers and the Allied powers, composed of the United States, United Kingdom, France, Holland, and Belgium, that internationalism would be eclipsed. Despite the failure, the League gave birth to some of the more task-specific international organizations that are still around today. These are World Health Organization and International Labour Organization. It would serve as the blueprint for future forms of international cooperation. In this respect, despite its organizational dissolution, the League of Nations principles survived World War II. In addition, the League was the concretization of the concepts of liberal internationalism. From Kant, it emphasized the need to form common international principles. For Mazzini, it enshrines the principle of cooperation and respect among nation-states. From Wilson, it called democracy and self-determination. These ideas would reassert themselves in creation of United Nations in 1946. The idea of Karl Marx differs in the interpretation of liberal internationalism, and he believed more in nationalist internationalism. A German socialist, philosopher, and was also an internationalist and biggest critic of Mazzini. He did not believe in nationalism. He believed that any true form of internationalism should be deliberately reject nationalism, which rooted people in domestic concerns instead of global ones. The capitalist class referred to the owners of factories, companies, and other means of production. In contrast, the proletariat was included, those who did not own the means of production but instead worked for the capital. To continue, he believed that in a socialist revolution seeking to overthrow the state and alter the economy, the proletariat had no nation. Hence, their now famous battle cry, "Workers of the world, unite! You have nothing to lose but your chains." Marx died in 1883, but his followers soon sought to make his vision concrete by establishing their international organization. So what was the achievement of Karl Marx in Socialist Internationalism? Socialist International was European socialist and labor parties established in Paris in 1889. The SI achievements included May 1 as Labor Day, International Women's Day, and a campaign for an 8-hour work day. The SI collapsed during World War I as the members' parties refused or were unable to join the internationalist efforts to fight for the war. As the SI collapsed, more radical versions emerged, and the so-called Russian Revolution of 1917. Then, Communist Internationalism exists. As the SI collapsed, more radical versions emerged. In the so-called Russian Revolution of 1917, Tsar Nicholas II overthrown and replaced by a revolutionary government led by Bolshevik Party. Vladimir Lenin believes that this new state was called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, exhorted the revolutionary vanguard parties to lead the revolutions across the world using methods of terror if necessary. Today, parties like these are referred as Communist parties. He even established the Communist International Comintern in 1990. It served as the central body for directing communist parties all over the world. This international was not only more radical than the Socialist International, it was also less democratic, because it followed closely the top-down governance of the Bolsheviks. However, a problem arose during World War II when the Soviet Union joined the Allied powers in 1941 together with the United States of America and the United Kingdom. Joseph Stalin dissolved the Comintern in 1943. After the war, he re-established the Comintern as the Communist Information Bureau or Cominform. It helped direct various communist parties that had taken power in Eastern Europe. With the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, whatever existing thoughts about communist internationalism also practically disappeared. For the post-war period, however, liberal internationalism would once again be ascendant, and the biggest evidence of this is the rise of United Nations as the center of global governance. For the conclusion, this lesson examined the roots of international system. It also discussed the short history of internationalism. There is also an inclusion of the aspect of globalization. It also increased interdependence of states. Lastly, international relations. The internationalism is one window into the broader phenomenon of globalization, since global interactions are heightened by the increased interdependence of the states. It manifests itself not just through state-to-state relations. International relations are also facilitated by the international organizations that promote global norms and policies, and the most prominent example of this organization is United Nations.